Tyrone, Muggsy Bogues.
I gotta go for it.
Muggsy underneath, slam dunk.
Wow. Muggsy squeezed through a little hole there. Wasn't much room.
Muggsy. Where did he go? That's the drive, and Bogues just stripped it away. Takes it down against Paxson. Gives it back to Larry Johnson. Seconds left in the quarter. Patrick Ewing hitting on his third. And Bogues comes right back. Muggsy Bogues.
55-41. The combo against Wolf. Muggsy Bogues picked his pocket.
Trying to screen on him, but you can see he is going to stay up. He thought he got quick off.
Muggsy's annoying in many ways, Mark.
Muggsy stole it from Smith.
3-on-3. Bogues with a fake, then a drop off to Larry.
Muggsy got it to finish. 46-38. Mahorn took his eye off the ball. Bogues steals, speeds by him to the hole, up and in over Lampier. Bogues.
Again, what is it? It's 6-7 shots in this quarter. They get 7 of 8. The smallest man in the NBA delivers a mighty big.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Gold School Retro NBA, episode 13. And this tribute is dedicated to none other than Muggsy Bogues. If you guys don't know who Muggsy Bogues is, I suggest you stay tuned. Let's get it started. Muggsy Bogues grew up in the Baltimore, Maryland area, where he overcame a lot of family adversity and just growing up and seeing a lot of things that he shouldn't have seen. He achieved a lot in the NBA, college, and the high school ranks. He starts off going to Southern High School, where he transferred to then Dunbar, which had a renowned basketball program. But he didn't go there originally just for that. He wanted to be a dental technician. So they had a lot of health programs in there that he was interested in. So he ended up joining for that reason. He goes on to make the high school basketball team, coached by Bob Wade, who would then be coach of Maryland. Bob Wade received a lot of criticism. He heard a lot of things because of Muggsy's small stature. He was 5'3", very little to the game. A lot of people didn't really believe in him in high school. He was really mocked a lot. And Muggsy persevered through all that. That team was phenomenal, if you guys don't remember, the Dunbar boys. They had Reggie Williams, Reggie Lewis, and David Wingate, who all became good, phenomenal NBA players and went on to NBA and college level. They went undefeated twice. Do you hear me, guys? Twice. They went undefeated. They were ranked number 1 because they were just steamrolling through teams. Muggsy goes on to receive a lot of scholarships. He ends up signing on to the ACC's Wake Forest, where he becomes a legend in itself. He's still the all-time school steals and assists leader. And just 4 years after he left the school, his number is still retired in the rafters for Wake Forest. He goes on to average 11.4 points per game, 8.3 assists, and 3.1 steals. He actually wins the Naismith Award, plays all 4 years, wins the Naismith Award in his final senior season in 1987, and makes all-time ACC. That's phenomenal. That's 3 right there. 3 phenomenal feats by this amazing player, Muggsy Bogues. He goes on to get drafted. He goes on to the United States Basketball League, where he plays for the Rhode Island Gulls. If you guys don't know Rhode Island Gulls, they were a team in the United States Basketball League. And he goes on to be a showstopper there. They led the league in attendance. He led the league in minutes per game, and he averaged 22 points per game in that one season he played for them. And he was a showstopper. This guy was box office there. There was teams out there was fans that were enamored by his height and the things that he would do with his hands as far as stealing, pushing the pace, up tempo, and he was just a gritty point guard. He goes on to be selected in round 1, pick number 12 by the Washington Bullets, where he would play with alongside another tall player in his stature, Manu Bo. And they were actually the first duo that had the shortest, tallest players on their teams. They still hold that feat to this day. And he led the team in assists. While he only started in 14 games, he led the team in assists. Eventually, he was let go by they didn't prioritize him. They let him go into the expansion draft, where he would go on to be selected by the Charlotte Hornets, where he would spend the next 9 years of his career. Muggsy Bogues' career took an uproot. As soon as he joined the Hornets, he played alongside some greats, Alonzo Mourning, Larry Johnson. And I remember a lot of those fun teams because they had a lot of good rivalries with the Bulls, playing them in the playoffs, played up against the Knicks, one of my favorite teams. And I remember Muggsy Bogues going into that league, man, and he was just phenomenal. Bogues will go on to average 7.7 points per game, 7.6 assists, and 1.5 steals. If you guys don't know, Bogues was a kleptomaniac. He knew how to strip players. He knew how to bother them because he was so small. He was a pest on D. The guy was a kleptomaniac, let me tell you. And he went on to actually, in those 7 seasons he spent with Charlotte, he had consecutive seasons where he was top 7 in assists. And finished second in assists, actually, in the 93-94 season. And he just had a phenomenal run with the Hornets, man. Those Hornet teams was fun. I remember because I used to love watching them and the Bulls go at it in the playoffs. And, I remember there was when he came out in an interview one time and he said that Jordan would have his hand over him to basically for Muggsy Bogues to jump up the reach. Making fun of him because he was little. And Bogues, out of respect for him, would keep his hand down. And I thought that was pretty cool. And he just was such a fun player to watch, man. I mean, the guy overcame so much with the Charlotte Hornets. And I remember those teams with Larry Johnson, Alonzo Mourning. And he's still the all-time steal and assist leader with the Hornets, man, which is pretty dope, man. And it's just a testament to show you, man, how much about Muggsy Bogues achieved throughout his career. And I enjoy watching him. I remember him, Kenny Gaddison, and one of his best friends to this day still, Del Curry, which is obviously his son, Steph Curry, went into the NBA. He was a lights-out three-point shooter, and those Charlotte Hornet teams were fun, man. Because to me, they had a mixture of, like, up-tempo, but they could also shoot the three-ball well. And I just remember Bogues always getting in the passing lanes, always stripping players, and even guys that, like, I remember one time, man, he was going up against Doc Rivers, and he was just hassling him, giving him hell, man. And I remember that. I remember Muggsy Bogues just being just a guy that just a glue guy, an energy guy, fun to watch player, happy all the time. Just you could tell he genuinely loved the game of basketball. Yeah, and he was just phenomenal to watch. And unfortunately, his run ended after 9 years with the organization, and he started to decline because of a knee issue. And they didn't really think he would be the same after that. And at that time, he was the all-time leader. I'm talking about in the NBA, was the all-time leader in assist-to-turnover ratio. So it goes to tell you how much of a prototypical, he was just a phenomenal point guard to me that doesn't get enough credit to this day. And to hold that feat at that time was great, man. Especially being in the same draft class as Kevin Johnson and David Robinson. And a lot of people started catching on to how great Bogues was. Unfortunately, he was dealt to the Golden State Warriors alongside with Tony Delk for B.J. Armstrong. And Golden State, he was the assist leader in that lockout shortened season. And he ended up following stints with Toronto. And basically his career started to go down at that point, even though he featured in 80 games with the Toronto Raptors. Eventually his career ended in 2001. And from then on, he decided to go into G League coaching with the Charlotte Swarm. He had a stint over there for a while and then ended up coaching a high school, Catholic high school. And unfortunately, man, he just loved the game of basketball, and he followed it after that, man. He does a lot of foundations now, where he has the Muggsy Bogues Foundation, where he donates to, like basically gets young adults going into adulthood so they can go in the free world and become productive adults, and helps undernourished families that don't have enough money, for certain things. He's helped them out in a lot of different ways, and I've always loved that. And also, he was featured in the movie, if you guys don't remember, Space Jam. He was in that movie, and it was a pretty cool movie. I've seen it as a kid. It's phenomenal. If you guys haven't seen it, show your children. It was phenomenal. He's still closely associated with the Charlotte Hornets, where he's a rebranding ambassador. And he also has ties into the Ash Company, which caters to short men of his stature. And he also, what I discussed earlier about the Dunbar Poets, He actually did a 30 for 30 on ESPN where it talks about the historic run team with the Dunbar Poets. So you guys need to check that out. And he also has a autobiography called In the Little Giants. He also has an autobiography in the Land of the Giants, which details his life story and his upbringing and to where he's at now, which I think you guys should all check out. Overall, Muggsy Bogues was a man of the people, man, on and off the court. A lot of people are going to remember him for his little small height. I remember him for his small high heart. That's why, to this day, I attest that I'm not a big person of you got to be this tall to be a good basketball player, because Muggsy Bogues proved that alongside when Spud Webb came in the league. They both changed that tune in the NBA where you don't have to be tall to be effective in a game, and Muggsy proved that. So this is going to wrap up episode 13 of Go School Retro NBA. You guys can follow me on Spotify and on YouTube at Go School Retro NBA. It will be dropping tomorrow morning. Thank you all for staying tuned, and I'll see you on the next episode. This is going to conclude Muggsy Bogues tribute. Thank you everyone for tuning in. One love.